Well, good evening, everyone, and thanks so much for being here today. It's really very meaningful to me to have your support and to have you here today. We decided to do this year because I think it's important that we continue to set the tone when it comes to public safety in our community. I think there is so much to celebrate about what is going on in San Francisco and all the good things that we're doing. And I think often all of us in the criminal justice system, get caught up in the day-to-day stuff, and we forget to take a moment and actually take stock, not only of all the things that we're doing, but also what we plan to do. And I want to thank our Chief of Probation, Wendy Steele, Supervisor Campos, our Public Defender, Jeff Adashi, who's here, and all of you. I know many of you have had to cut short other commitments in order to be here, and I really appreciate it. So, as you all know, I am committed to making San Francisco the safest big city in America. That was a commitment that I made early on when I came to the city in 2009, and one that I will continue to work for. And alongside the prosecutors in my office, we're integrating every tool and strategy to achieve this. We work tirelessly to be sure that dangerous and violent offenders are kept away from the rest of our community. To do this effectively and maximize safety, we're implementing a different approach, a more modern approach to our work. An approach that focuses on three critical areas: crime prevention, victims, and violent offenders. After 30 years in law enforcement, many things are clear to me. Violence in our streets cannot be tolerated. It unravels the fabric of communities and leads to tragic loss of life. And that is why dangerous and violent offenders will always feel the full weight of my office. They simply cannot be amongst the rest of society without serious intervention. Rest assured that my office does everything in its power to identify these individuals and protect society from them. This is the obvious part of my work as your district attorney. However, there is a more nuanced part of my work in what to do with the vast majority of the people. Those that are not inherently dangerous, but are still committing crimes. Moving away from one-size-fits-all criminal justice system must happen. We are drowning in our inability to distinguish the violent from the nuisance. I want to spend a good portion of my time tonight talking to you about this changing aspect of our work. A concept of modern justice where the dangerous feels the full weight of the law and the nonviolent receive the rehabilitation they need in order to lead a crime-free life. The immense importance of the job that prosecutors, investigators, and support staff in my office perform every day cannot be understated. In partnership with the rest of the criminal justice system, they're continuously looking for ways to make us safer. They're ensuring that dangerous individuals and gang members are off the streets, and they're enabling all of us to sleep a bit easier at night. To those of you in my office who are here tonight, I want to extend my appreciation and gratitude for the long hours that you put in to make San Franciscans safer. Please stand for a moment. Let's recognize all of you. Thank you. What you're seeing is, you're seeing an incredible group of men and women that work for you each and every day, sometimes neglecting their personal life, their families, their personal needs, in order to make sure that we get our work done. I thank you deeply. You know, central to a modern justice system is our implementation of modern technology. It is time to incorporate more science and data in the work that we do. And I know that my partner, Chief Steele, continuously talks about using evidence-based practice, and that's exactly what we must do. These efforts can help reduce the population in our prisons and enable law enforcement to double down on serious and violent offenders. That is why I'm pleased to announce that we're pursuing the implementation of an arrest alert system. This system will quickly notify our prosecutors when key individuals known to be driving criminal activity in San Francisco are apprehended. Tools like the arrest alert system, RDA stats, and others are helping my office refine and focus its response to crime. Smart usage of data can maximize taxpayers' dollars by unclogging our courts and enabling my prosecutors to focus on the issues that pose the most serious public safety consequences. You know, back in 2009, drug-related offenses accounted for 63% of our work. We were engaged in a 2-decade war on drugs that hasn't necessarily done as well. Today, that number has been virtually cut in half and stands at 32%. And there is an important point to be made here. We're doing so because we're focusing our resources on more violent and serious crime and offenders. And the results are showing. Our felony assault filings, our felony filings for assaults, domestic violence cases, gun possession, and robbery are all up. More importantly, convictions in these areas are up too. In fact, the percentage of our caseload devoted to prosecuting burglaries and robberies is almost doubled. This focus on serious offenders is essential to keeping violent crime down. Last year, fewer shots were fired on our streets than in 2012. We also saw a 30% reduction in homicides. These are live, safe, trauma avoided, and we're safer for it. However, robberies are up all over the city, and there's still more that needs to be done. From San Francisco to London to Colombia, the world is facing a global epidemic of smartphone robberies that often turn violent. In Hong Kong, iPhones stolen from here can fetch upwards of $2,000 apiece. And here in San Francisco, more than half of all the robberies involve this theft of a mobile communication device. But you know what the interesting thing is? That the industry does not appear to have received the memo. I know, isn't it funny? You know, whether it's because of their inaction as a result of a lack of motivation, or if this is motivated by profit. These corporations have failed to protect their customers from their threat, and as a result, wireless consumers everywhere are bearing the brunt of this failure. Interestingly enough, this is not very different than what we saw back in the 1990s, when the theft of stereos from automobiles were rampant. It was an epidemic, and it wasn't until we persuaded the automobile manufacturers to make sure that car radios would be rendered inoperable once removed from the console that this problem ended. And we can do again the same thing for smartphones. That is what legislation Senator Mark Leno and I are working on proposes to do. With a successful passage, people will learn that stealing a smartphone is a useless proposition because it will be as valuable as a paperweight. And I am encouraged that our efforts are being duplicated in Congress. A bill was introduced in the US Senate just 2 weeks ago that will require theft deterrent technology on all smartphones. And it's nice to know that all this started right here. We in San Francisco are making a difference not only locally, but nationally and globally. The potential to end this epidemic is very real, is coming, and it will dramatically improve our safety. You know, while serious offenses such as robbery often require incarceration, there are many offenders that can be redirected with the right interventions. It is short-sighted to think that giving an offender time in jail is sufficient to address the underlying factors that led them to offend. Over-reliance on incarceration is one of the principal reasons that we have seen a 500% increase in the people locked up in this country in the last 30 years. And with about 60% of California inmates recidivating, I believe it's time to abandon this failed, expensive, decades-long obsession with punishment and start focusing on what works. Over 90% of all offenders eventually are coming back to our community. I believe we would be wise to make sure that when they come home, they are going to be much better than when they left. And that is why I'm sponsoring an initiative to reduce drug possession and petty theft from a felony to a misdemeanor. The estimated $150 to $250 million in savings will enable California to put a down payment on programming to help offenders stay out of the criminal justice system permanently. We don't want him back, not as an offender. We want him as a productive member of our society. And it's really important to recognize that what we have done has not worked. You know, often I have heard that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over again, expecting a different result. But yet, for the last 30 years, we have done just that. Traditionally, a prosecutor's interaction with crime is largely reactive. The work begins after the crime happens. And the primary ability to protect the safety is by taking the offender off the street. However, in San Francisco, my office embraces a much broader view of our duty to enhance public safety. We work hard every day to prevent crime because preventing crime before it happens is always the best strategy. One less crime, one less tragedy, one less victim. When it comes to prevention, there is nothing more important, in my opinion, than keeping kids in school. In San Francisco, 94% of homicide victims under the age of 25 are high school dropouts. And nationally, 68% of our state prison inmates are dropouts. Studies indicate that on the average, one additional year of schooling corresponds with a 20% decrease in the likelihood of a juvenile stealing a car, and 30% decrease in the likelihood that they will commit murder or an assault. The facts are disturbingly simple. Today's truant is tomorrow's dropout, and tomorrow's dropout is all too likely to find trouble and end up in our criminal justice system. That is why in 2013, my office partnered with the mayor and supervisors Cohen and Breed to direct $130,000, which was supported by the rest of the board, by the way, for truancy intervention programs at Ida B. Wells Continuation and Burton High School. And we hope eventually to make this a model throughout the entire school district. The funding pays for case managers at the schools to provide intensive support for students who were severely truant in middle school and make better choices about their future. But you know, we also know that unfortunately some juveniles will end up committing a crime. And for that reason, we're launching a new program this year that is an alternative to prosecutions. It is called Make It Right. Through this program, young people, their victims, and supporters come together in a facilitated dialogue to develop a plan for the young person to repair the harm they caused. If they successfully make amends, the case will not be prosecuted, and we will be protecting one more young person from having a criminal record and the consequences of having a criminal record. We believe that these interventions will prevent these juveniles from recidivating and will ensure victims are restored and treated with respect. There's another area that I also have a great deal of concern with, and that's our traffic safety. In 2014, There is one prevention campaign in particular that I am committed to expanding. Too many San Franciscans are dying or being injured on our city streets. I am passionate about this effort because by the time a case gets to my desk, it's already too late. Someone has lost their life. And those tragedies are completely avoidable. And a modern city like San Francisco can and should eliminate this threat. Last year, 20 people were struck and killed by motorists, the highest number since 2007. And in the first 2 months of 2014, 8 people have already lost their lives on our roadways. We have lost children, grandparents, people in the prime of their life. You know, whether we're at the wheel, on our bikes,